Today, we're going to talk about a guy who didn't just play a sport, he completely redefined it. I mean, we're talking about a man many people consider the greatest athlete of the entire 20th century. This is the story of Sugar Ray Robinson. But you gotta ask yourself, what is it that really takes an athlete from being just great to being a true legend? Is it just about raw power? Is it about having a perfect record? Or is it something else entirely? Something that just changes the whole game? Well, for the man we're talking about, the journey to becoming a legend started with a pretty simple problem. He was too young to fight. And the solution? It involved a borrowed ID card that would accidentally create one of the most famous names in sports history. Okay, so let's get right into this first part of his story, which is, how the world even came to know his name. Or maybe more accurately, the name he had to borrow. See, his birth name was actually Walker Smith Jr. He was just a kid who desperately wanted to get into an amateur tournament in New York, but he was underage. He didn't have the membership card you needed. So what do? A friend of his lent him his card, and on that card was the name Ray Robinson. So Walker Smith Jr. stepped into that ring. But the fighter who came out, he was Ray Robinson. But just being Ray Robinson, that wasn't quite the full story. The name that would really go down in history needed one more ingredient. And funny enough, it came from a simple, off-the-cuff comment. The story goes that after one of his fights up in Watertown, a sports editor turned to his manager, George Gainford, and said this exact line. "That's a sweet fighter you've got there, as sweet as sugar." Gainford absolutely loved it, and that was it. From that day forward, he wasn't just Ray Robinson, he was Sugar Ray Robinson. All right, let's move on, because once he had that name, Sugar Ray started a run of dominance so total, so complete, that it literally forced sports writers to invent a whole new term just to describe how great he was. So what made him so unbelievably special in the ring? Well, he didn't just fight, he performed. People said he moved like a jazz musician, totally fluid, completely unpredictable. One second he's gliding across the canvas, and the next, bam, he'd unleash a combination with just devastating power. And it was all built on this foundation of just masterful footwork. Get this. Robinson was so good, he basically broke the ranking system. The sports writers had to come up with a new term, just for him, pound for pound. See, it wasn't enough to compare him to other guys in his weight class. They had to create this idea, this question, if every single fighter in the world were the exact same size, who would be the best? And for years, the answer was always Sugar Ray. And believe me, this larger-than-life personality wasn't just for the ring. Outside the ropes, in Harlem, he was an absolute icon. He was famous for cruising around in a flamingo pink Cadillac, and he was a really sharp businessman too, owned a whole bunch of local businesses. That same grace he had in the ring, he carried it with him everywhere he went. But the story of a great champion is never really complete without an equally great rival. And for Robinson, that rival was just a relentless, tough-as-nails force of nature who would push him to the absolute edge. 6. Just let that sink in. That's how many times he had to get in the ring with Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull. I mean, can you imagine 6 brutal, all-out wars against one of the toughest guys to ever box? It was the perfect clash of styles, really. You had Robinson's beautiful, elegant precision against LaMotta's raw, come-forward power. Their rivalry became one of the greatest in sports history, period. Their very last fight, back in 1951, is now the stuff of boxing legend. They called it the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. It was just this brutal, bloody end to their long war. And in the end, it was Robinson, after taking a ton of punishment, who unleashed the savage, precise attack that was so overwhelming he finally took the world middleweight title from his biggest rival. But then, in a twist that absolutely nobody saw coming, he retired, right at the top of his game. And not to go rest on a beach somewhere. Nope. He retired to become a professional tap dancer. I mean, seriously, the best fighter on the planet hangs it up to dance? But the ring, it always calls you back. Years later, he returned, defying his age, defying all the doubters, and made history all over again. He became the first fighter ever to win a world championship 5 separate times. So when you put it all together, what does it all mean? Well, his legacy isn't just about the belts or the knockouts. It's about how he completely and fundamentally changed the sport itself. This right here, this is the real heart of it.
Sugar Ray Robinson didn't just win fights. He took the brutal science of boxing and he turned it into a true art form. For him, the ring wasn't just a ring, it was his stage.
So, what was his blueprint for greatness? Well, first, he proved that pure lightning speed could absolutely beat brute size. Second, he showed everyone that elegance and rhythm, that they could be weapons, just as dangerous as a knockout punch. He basically drew up the plans for what a modern, dynamic fighter should be. And you can see his influence everywhere. I mean, when the next generation of legends were coming up, who were they watching? They were watching him. You think of Muhammad Ali with that incredible footwork and charisma, or Sugar Ray Leonard, who literally took his name. They were all studying the master. Which kind of leaves us with this final thought to chew on. When you look at the life and career of Sugar Ray Robinson, it makes you ask a pretty deep question. Where does incredible athletic skill end, and where does true artistry begin? For Sugar Ray, it seems like there was never any line at all.